Mars, our planetary neighbor, has long intrigued us and invited speculation about whether life exists there. Recent successful missions like NASA's Mars rovers have yielded increasing knowledge about the red planet's geology and history. Now, a new space explorer is waiting in the wings and ready to take center stage, the Mars lander called Phoenix. Set for launch aboard a Delta II rocket, Phoenix will dig through the Martian soil and ice in the Arctic region using a robotic arm. Phoenix will use its onboard scientific instruments to analyze the samples it retrieves. By using the Deep Space Network tracking stations, scientists on Earth will be able to communicate with the spacecraft. They hope to learn more about existing water on the planet, as well as search for any signs that some form of life could exist there. The Phoenix mission should take us one step closer to the goal of someday conducting human exploration of Mars. Join us now at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida as we take an in-depth look at preparations for the launch and learn about the science of our next mission to Mars, Phoenix.
Welcome to the Phoenix Webcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Nail. Today, we're going to take you out of the studio and into the field to show you where all the action takes place in the weeks leading up to liftoff. You'll see how the rocket takes shape at the launch pad as the spacecraft undergoes its final test just a few miles away. So, let's get started. Our mission manager, Ron Mueller, is going to join me at the clean room where the Phoenix lander is being prepared for launch. But first, here's Ron to tell us a little more about the spacecraft.
The last stop on Earth for the Phoenix spacecraft is NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Built in Colorado by Lockheed Martin Space Systems, Phoenix arrived at the Space Center's shuttle landing facility aboard a U.S. Air Force C-17. From there, it was transported to a clean room at the Payload Hazardous Servicing Facility for pre-flight testing. The final checkouts include spin balance testing with and without fuel, testing the heat shield separation, verifying the launch and cruise stage systems, and conducting solar array deployment and lighting test. Workers loaded flight software and performed compatibility testing with the Deep Space Network. The parachute that will slow the spacecraft's descent through the thin Martian atmosphere was installed, and the electrical power system was put through a final performance test. The landing radar was integrated, and the entry, descent, and landing system verified. Following all the tests, the spacecraft can then be installed on the third stage before moving to the launch pad in a transportation canister. With the third stage attached to the Delta II rocket and covered with a protective fairing, Phoenix will await liftoff on its exciting journey to Mars.
I'm here now in the Payload Hazardous Servicing Facility with Ron Mueller. Thanks for joining me, Ron.
Good to be here, Tiffany.
Ron, could you explain to us your role as mission manager for Phoenix?
Sure. As mission manager, I work with the spacecraft team and the launch vehicle team here at Kennedy Space Center to ensure that the spacecraft is designed and tested to withstand the environment during launch and prepare all the steps along the way so that everything is ready for launch.
Ron, one of our viewers, Justin from Flint, asked, how do we get the lander out to the launch pad and up on top of the rocket?
The first step in moving the spacecraft out to the launch pad is to bring the third stage of the launch vehicle here to the PHSF. The spacecraft will be mounted to that third stage. That stack will be encapsulated and then transported out to the launch pad where the rest of the vehicle awaits.
Jessica from Denver wanted to know what protects Phoenix from getting damaged during the launch.
To protect the spacecraft from damage during launch, we first do a lot of analysis and testing to ensure that the spacecraft is designed to meet that environment. Additionally, there's a fairing on the launch vehicle that helps protect the spacecraft during the launch phase.
Ron, thanks for joining me outside the clean room.
You're welcome.
While final preparations are underway here on the spacecraft, the rocket that will carry it is being readied just a few miles away at Launch Pad 17A. Before Launch Manager Chuck Duvall joins me at the pad, here's our Deputy Chief Engineer Dave Solberger to tell us how the rocket is prepared for launch.
The launch vehicle that will carry the Phoenix spacecraft on the first leg of its journey to Mars is the Delta II rocket. Deltas have been carrying NASA spacecraft aloft since the 1960s, and today's Delta II has a long history of successful launches. Unlike the Space Shuttle, which is moved to the launch pad fully assembled, the Delta II is erected on the pad in stages. In a hangar at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, workers prepare and test the first and second stages of the rocket before moving them to the launch pad. Once the first stage is hoisted into place on the pad, the 9 solid rocket boosters that will help propel the Delta II are attached. Workers then raise the second stage atop the first as the powerful vehicle takes shape. In the final days before launch, the spacecraft is attached to the upper stage booster before moving to the launch pad in a transport canister. Once the spacecraft is mounted atop the rocket and covered with its protective fairing, the Delta II awaits its thunderous liftoff and the beginning of another exciting mission to Mars.